everybody. How are we doing? Excellent. How excited are we about E-Omega Plus? Now, I'm hoping by the end of this, that cheer is going to be a whole lot louder. Because today, we're going to take a closer look at this incredible product. Yesterday, we learned that the Wild Orange essential oil that adds substantial power to this formula. We also learned about the beautiful Nordic coast where we source the fish for this omega supplement. And another exciting part is that due to the extensive research on EPA and DHA, we can make enhanced claims about this product. Yeah, let's go. Let's go. Even so, some of you might be wondering, why E-Omega Plus? Why is it needed? Alex?
Heart disease affects millions of people globally, claiming lives at an alarming rate. In the US alone, it took over 697,000 lives in 2023, accounting for 25% of all deaths. Someone dies from cardiovascular disease every 33 seconds, making it the top cause of death for both men and women. So these statistics highlight the urgent need to address this health crisis.
Our understanding of omega fats and their impact on heart health began in the early 20th century. By the 1930s, researchers recognized that not all fats were equal. In the 1970s, a study on the Inuit people revealed that despite their high-fat diet, they had low rates of heart disease. This led to further research confirming the benefits of omega-3s.
Today, the connection between omega fatty acids and heart health is well established. Despite the widespread availability of this information, the prevalence of poor heart health remains high, largely due to unhealthy lifestyle choices and poor dietary habits. But there's hope. Research shows that up to 90% of heart health challenges can be addressed through lifestyle changes. One of the most effective strategies is to increase the intake of omega-3 fatty acids. And by making conscious decisions to prioritize heart-healthy foods and embrace a more active lifestyle, we can significantly enhance our heart health and pave the way for a longer, healthier life.
Alex, yesterday we talked a little bit about E-Omega Plus. You touched on the importance of including Wild Orange in this formula. Can we get into that a little bit more? The line from yesterday that I loved was, we put the EO in omega. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, essential oil chemistry is crucial in this formula. The Wild Orange is a powerhouse due to its limonene content, about 95%. This limonene directly inhibits the HMG-CoA reductase enzyme, modulating your body's cholesterol biosynthesis. Limonene activates AMPK to improve energy homeostasis, and it reduces the pro-inflammatory cytokines by preventing nuclear factor kappa B from translocating into the cell's nucleus.
Now, that is exceptional, but I'll break it down a little bit. Because everybody's like, yeah, wow. Because of the clinical levels of Wild Orange, basically, our omega product is unlike anything that's out there. And I think I've got a little bit more to share on that later. But let's talk about the omega side of the product.
Yeah, omega fatty acids are a really complicated subject. In fact, I can imagine spending more than 40 years studying fatty acids and still have more to discover. Come to think of it, I can imagine if you sat down to write about omega fatty acids, you'd end up with hundreds of publications. Well, we're fortunate today that we don't have to imagine this. We have with us a leading researcher in the field of omega-3 fatty acids. He's spent more than 40 years studying fatty acids and authored more than 350 publications on the subject. He's the inventor of the Omega-3 Index and the founder of Omega Quant Analytics and the Fatty Acid Research Institute. Perhaps most impressively, he's ranked among the top 2% of scientists worldwide based on the impact of his research. So let's put it this way. If we wanted a master class on how to play basketball, we would invite Michael Jordan up here. But today we're talking about fatty acids. So we invited the Michael Jordan, the codfather of omega fatty acids, to join us. Please help me welcome an authority in the world of fatty acid research, Dr. here with us today. We appreciate the support. Now, we're itching to get to some of these discussions about omega fatty acids. Before we get into all of those details, can you help everybody here understand quickly why is it so important that we all consume more omega-3 fatty acids?
Wow. Well, for 40 years, I thought EPA and DHA were the essential oils. I think I've learned the last couple of days that I might be wrong about that. Pretty impressive. I think to put it in one sentence, the nutrient that is most missing from particularly the American, the Western diet, is the EPA and DHA, the omega-3 fatty acids. So that's why when you replace them, you get such an improvement in health.
Yeah, and E-omega is such a great source of those.
Yeah, yeah. I'd also like to thank you for the chairs, by the way. I appreciate that. Really, to stand for very long, carrying the weight of the knowledge I have about omega-3 is very difficult.
That's great.
Had to do that.
That's great. Now, so with the introduction yesterday of E-Omega Plus, we invited people here to go and get a test kit where they can test their blood, their red blood cell levels, and see what their omega-3 index is. Why is the red blood cell omega-3 index such a good marker of overall health?
This is a marker and a test that we invented about 20 years ago, and it's spread around the world now. It really is the best way to measure your tissue levels of omega-3. It's not just in the plasma, because that level can vary with what you eat. But the red blood cell is a much more stable marker of your omega-3 status. It's a cell, like all your other cells. So what happens there happens everywhere.
That's great.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Not all populations, in fact, most people probably in this room, aren't consuming the omega-3 fats that we should be. In fact, an estimated 95% of Americans fall short of the ideal intake. If you look at this map, you can clearly see that some areas of the world are actually doing better than others at consuming these healthy fats. What insights can you share about that?
Well, this is a map that we just published a few months ago looking at the omega-3 index status of the world. One thing you can see here is a lot of gray, meaning countries where we have no information. And I'm hoping that working with you, we can fill this map out a little bit better. That would be fantastic. Also, you'll see that there's very little green on the map. Green is obviously the people who have the omega-3 index over 8%, which is the target value. Very few countries, mostly Inuit or like Japan and Korea, where they eat a lot of fish. But the rest of the world is in dire need of more omega-3.
Yeah, well, I think with our new product, this group is going to change that map. Am I right?
Amen.
Let's go.
Right. Now, we have a chart that shows the omega-3 index. If you have an omega-3 index of more than 8%, you see a significant reduction in your relative risk for cardiovascular events. Can you explain a little bit more about what this data means?
Yeah, this is a study that we did with about 10, pooling together about 10 cohorts of research study subjects, and we found that if you compare the risk for a fatal coronary event, heart attack, if you compare the risk for that in the people who have the lowest omega-3 levels, which is 4% or below, to those who have an 8% or above, there's a 35% lower risk. If you control for everything else we can control for, cholesterol levels, smoking, blood pressure, that the omega-3, a higher omega-3 is always linked with lower risk for fatal coronary disease.
You know, when we're talking heart health, we talk a lot about the importance of cholesterol, right? And there's clearly an association there. But when we look at the relative risk for death from any of these, from any cause, we see some differences between omega-3 and cholesterol levels. Can you help us make sense of this?
Sure. Yeah. In this study that we did about 5 or 6 years ago, we looked at a group called the Framingham study, which is a large, very famous observational cohort. And we looked at the risk not for death from heart disease, but just for death. It's the easiest outcome to figure out.
It's a really positive
very
conversation we have here. Yeah.
Are you alive? Are you dead? And we compared the risk for death over time as a function of different levels of omega-3, and that's on the left side here. And you see how that green arrow goes down, which means that the risk for death from anything decreased as the omega-3 levels went up. Each of those bars is 20% of the people. We asked the same question about cholesterol, because we had cholesterol levels on these people too, and said, well, does cholesterol predict risk for death? And that's on the right-hand side, and the orange arrow going across the top says no. It says that the higher the cholesterol didn't make any difference. Theoretically, that orange bar or arrow should have gone up. Higher cholesterol, higher risk, but it was flat. So I'm not saying that cholesterol is not important. Don't ignore it, but if you're going to pay attention to cholesterol, you need to pay attention to the omega-3 index too.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, this discussion about the risk of dying, let's talk about longevity and the likelihood of living a long and healthy life.
Right.
There's an interesting graph here that we're showing. How can having a higher omega-3 index, the omega fatty acids incorporated into your red blood cells, how can that contribute to longer life?
Well, that's a great question, and we've been very interested in that. In this particular study, we're back to the Framingham study I mentioned earlier. 2,500 people we followed for about 12 years after we collected their omega-3 levels. Then we looked at their risk for dying in that window of time, and we compared the effects of a high omega-3 with the effects of smoking. Because we kind of want to get a sense. And what we found here on this graph, if you look at the graph, the dotted line on the top, that's the rate at which people died, and these people had the highest omega-3 index, and they were non-smokers. And so over about 12 years, only about 15% of them died. The other extreme is the other dotted line below, is the people who had the lowest omega-3 index and were smokers. And about half of them had kicked the bucket in the next 12 years. And in the middle is kind of the mixture of the two. So in a way, the omega-3 index is as much of a predictor for risk for death as smoking is. And I'm obviously not encouraging people to giving them an excuse to smoke. So I'll just take my omega-3s and I'll keep smoking. That's not it. Point is, the omega-3 index is an important risk factor. If you think smoking is important, omega-3 is important too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, we recognize that this is really from any cause. What about specific cause mortality and omega-3 index level?
Right. A lot more bars. Sorry about the bars, but that's the way we do it. This graph is from 45,000 people that we studied and pooling about 16 different cohorts of individuals that we had their omega-3 levels at baseline. And we followed them not only for death from anything. That first set of bars on the left, it goes from the lowest omega-3 index is the far left bar, and then the purple bar is the highest omega-3 index. And the higher the omega-3, the lower the risk for death from anything. But to your question, we looked at cause specific, meaning we know what cause it was, and it was it cardiovascular disease that killed you? Well, that's the next set of bars, and the higher the omega-3, boom, 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 the lower the risk for cardiovascular death. The next one is cancer death, and that was also significantly reduced. And the final one is that bucket of deaths that's everything else, regardless of what the cause. The higher the omega-3, lower risk for death from any cause. And that, to me, says this is not just about heart disease. It's about overall health.
Yeah. I love to see, before we leave this slide, I love to see these p-values of less than 0.0001. That I guess that suggests this is not due to chance.
This is not a chance finding. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, bottom line, we can see for longevity, increase your omega-3 consumption.
Right.
Bottom line. Which kind of brings me into the next point. You know, we've seen that intervention would be the best way to stop or prevent this. In fact, it would cost less to supplement the entire population with omega-3s than to pay for the related, you know, cardiovascular interventions, right?
Yeah. That's right.
And that's not a small number. That's a big number. Why do you think people aren't talking more about this? Why isn't there more public policy about this?
It's because one of the factors is that the medical community has a hard time buying into this. From their point of view, fish oil is snake oil.
I think we've heard that before, haven't we?
You ever heard that before? Right, exactly. I mean, that's a big part of the problem. You haven't got the endorsement of the AMA and the other big companies because they think these are just vitamins and mineral supplements, and so they can't be that helpful. Just eat a healthy diet. Well, that's not worked out so well, has it?
You're speaking to the right crowd here.
Yeah, I know. This is preaching to the choir here, right?
Now, as we look and think of your impressive career, more than 350 publications and 40 years of research, is there anything to learn about omega-3 fatty acids, or have we discovered everything?
We have not discovered everything, no. Yeah, it's been 44 years since my first omega-3 paper. And of course, I think we talked earlier, I think omega-3s are the 4th or the 5th most studied molecule in history. Not just nutrients, I mean aspirin, statins, penicillin, all the medicines, all the molecules of medicine. Omega-3 has got about the 5th most number of publications. And it's only been looking at it for 40 years, not 80, 90 years. So it's an amazing field. One of the most interesting things is the second one on this slide, that we've seen that giving omega-3 fatty acids either to school children or to prisoners, which is not a lot of difference, I guess, will reduce aggressive behavior. And that there's so much of a need for that to get out in the community.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bill and Alex. This was such a great discussion. Everybody love it? There was a lot to remember, but I want you to remember at least 2 things from today. First, E-Omega Plus is unlike anything else on the market. You won't find another omega product like this in the world. It is in a class all of its own. In fact, we set out to prove that. We did our own clinical study comparing the difference between just omegas and omegas with Wild Orange. This was a simple change with significant results. We saw a statistically significant decrease in blood pressure and resting heart rate. In fact, that information is so new I had to write it down on my card here. Heart rate went down by 16.2%. Yeah. Blood pressure, 42.2%. This is a whole new realm of scientific proof that indeed our supplements, doTERRA's supplements, truly are powered by essential oils. We can say that our product is more consistent, more powerful, and you will see results that others simply can't deliver. I like to say, doTERRA oils make everything better. Second, E-Omega Plus is a foundational wellness product. Together with VMG, which you will hear about next, and PB Restore, it forms the bedrock of your daily nutrition. Now, this has been an amazing session. I know Becca talked about this before. We've got plenty of other education coming your way, and I'm really trying to finish so we don't get music hit on us. So thank you all so much. We love you. E Omega Plus. Let's go.